So here we go. So we're talking about Indian content resonating globally. And finally, we are seeing a lot of Indian content resonating, especially the I-dramas resonating globally. And this is not just the diaspora audience, but also beyond that. So let's find out from Nikhil and Shilangi as to how they're making this happen in India and how have the sensibilities changed when it comes to content making that would kind of resonate with the global audience. That is exactly what we are trying to find out today. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Shilangi.
Thank you.
So it'll be interesting to hear from you because, I mean, I was just kind of doing a bit of research before I came here. In fact, a lot of your content has been making it to the top charts of Amazon Prime Video week after week. And many of them, like be it a Family Man or Mirzapur, they have been, you've been doing multiple seasons. So if you could just take us through as to how different, how have the sensibilities of content making changed over the years? Do you actually think about content which would resonate to the global audience when you start making the content?
Firstly, thank you for having us here, and good afternoon, everybody. So when we started about 9 years ago in the country, at that point in time, we were very clear that if we are making a subscription-worthy business for premium audiences, we want to create, cinematic, nuanced, and high-quality local content. And that's, at that time, it was a complete white space for us because long-form series telling was a space which was extremely new to the country. So we had to start the whole initiative ground up, including identifying makers, identifying writers, training them on how to write for long-form series. And the journey actually began with fairly experienced filmmakers who were taking their first steps into streaming. And this was this new exciting format, the ability to take stories, globally, experiment with different types of storytelling. And I think that journey played out quite well for us, whether you look at Family Man or Mirzapur or Made in Heaven, Call Me Babe, Patal Lok, they're some of the most loved franchises on streaming. We've been fortunate to be the home for those. I think over a period of time, what's happened is because these franchises have become quite successful, almost 60% of all our originals have gone into a new season, which is a very, very healthy success rate. Now, to answer your question more directly in terms of what's changed now, is we are seeing a fresh bunch of new voices, new talent with whom we are beginning this journey again. So a lot of the experienced makers have done this once or twice and they've learned the art of storytelling on streaming, but now we're getting new people to do that. A good example would be a show that we launched earlier this year called Dupaiya, which was really successful. First-time creators, writers, ensemble cast. So we went on that journey with them, and there are multiple such shows. I would say almost about a third of our pipeline going forward has people who are first-time creators or maybe first or second-time creators.
So what do you exactly tell them? When you train those content creators, those first-time content creators, what do you exactly tell them? Do you actually tell them to think global, or how different is it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the core of this answer is that imitation won't get you anywhere, right? What travels is originality, what travels is authenticity. And for our content to be loved the world over, we have to be rooted to what we do best, because this is a show or a movie that will land up on a global service competing with content from across the world, the best content from across the world. And for us to be original and authentic, that's the way we will differentiate. Obviously, the quality of storytelling, the craft, the investment in production has to be international standards. But that rooted authenticity is extremely important. So we actively tell them to write for local, be as authentic to the world that they're creating, the characters that they're creating. And those characters, when they set up in the global world, look very different from anything else. Obviously, the emotions are universal, but the world that you're seeing as a consumer in any part of the world is what makes it distinctive. And that's the green shoots that have started. Those are those authentic, rooted stories which are doing really well. You'll be surprised for the amount of love a show like Panchayat, which is a story of a heartland India, or Mirzapur, receives across the world, not only from Indian audiences or diaspora audiences, but from people across the world. You'll have the cast members or creators saying, I was in Azerbaijan and I'm walking on the road and someone recognized me and said, hey, you're the actor from that particular show. So that's how it's
The
traveling.
sheer scale that you have across so many countries, so that plays up. So Shilangi, I mean, what is your take on this? When a particular piece of content, gets traction globally, what kind of questions do people ask you? And especially for a show like, say, Panchayat or Family Man, which are like such rooted stories, and they are set in places which are actually in the hinterlands. So what kind of questions do they ask you, and what do they tell you as to how they relate to it? What does a global audience tell you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty spectacular journey for us in the last 9 years. But if I were to look back, I think there were some things that we foundationally looked at when we were starting off, which was like, the way Nikhil said, that how do we create a premium subscription-worthy service in a country which is so diverse and so price conscious. The second thing that we kind of looked at foundationally was a very clear North Star from a content perspective is to say that we need to create stories that are, that surprise our customers, delight them, and eventually they're relatable. And that relatability of content is what sort of helps it make it travel beyond. So it has to, of course, be successful locally, and then sort of build in and work through diaspora customers, and then, of course, via localization also appeal to customers who are not Indian origin or don't understand Indian languages. And the third thing we looked at was that a very clear understanding of course, India is diverse, but what makes it so diverse? One of the main things about content is that all of us are multilingual, all of us stream in multiple languages, but the languages are not the same. They're not equal when it comes to consumption. You choose basis the content. So to give you a Prime Video example, like 65% of our customers stream in more than 4+ languages. So when we looked at this foundationally, it got us to a point where we look at two clear routes. The first one is how do we build access, and the second is how do we drive choice. When it comes to access, it's a combination of not just service the segments, multiple segments in India. How do we make sure that the product offerings that we have in India that are unique and catering to local audiences. So Prime, as you know, globally is one Prime service, and Prime is a multi-benefit program. But in India, we have Prime Lite, which is a two benefit service where the video benefit is differentiated on grounds like the choice of devices, the quality of content, and such things. So some of these access led to India First Innovation. Prime Lite launched in India, Prime Video Shopping Edition launched in India, and all of these are now global India First Innovation that we are able to sort of export out. It's available, these product offerings are available globally, and that drives access. The other thing when it comes to sort of choice is that the Indian slate is pretty much the biggest slate outside of the US. So the content that we create, just the sheer quantum of content that we create is massive, and it's across languages. But then we sort of ground that on Amazon's principles of selection, convenience, and with selection comes the export service, which Nikhil spoke about, and then over time we've been able to sort of ensure that we work with the ecosystem, we bring in our partners. The only way for the streaming industry to grow is to be inclusive, and this is something that we picked up early on. So we have 25+ channel subscribers, partners on the service. Our international partners are Apple TV Plus and Discovery Plus and BBC Player. And regionally, we have Hoi Choi and Namaflix, Manorama Max, Chopal. So it's a very wide array of selection that we bring to our customers. And then we have the movie rentals business, where again we have the broadest and the biggest rental library. All of this put together, what it does for us is that today 99% of PIN codes stream Prime Video content across all of these businesses. 25% of our streamers in the last 1 year are absolutely new. And India continues to be one of the most popular sort of Prime Video locales. And our Prime customers stream the most globally. We're the top 3 most streamed. This sort of lends itself to a lot of talkability, a lot of chatter. And when our content travels outside India, like just to give you an example, last year, for straight 52 weeks, our titles stranded in the top 10. And this year, like Nikhil spoke of, from Patalok, we started the year with the season 2 of Patalok, to the success that we've seen with Dupaiya, Traitors, and now the chat show that we've launched. We've had a really fun year. We're not just the home of franchises that have run into multiple seasons, but what really energizes us that our newer IPs are now sort of, picking up steam. Whether it's Call Me Bae, we're in season 2 of development, or Dahar, or Traitors, or Dupaiya. It's been quite fantastic to see this content being successful locally and internationally.
Nikhil, I would now come to you. So in India, you've recently started releasing films in theaters and then taking it to streaming. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a strategy you plan to take forward. We're going to see more films getting released in theaters and then on streaming. And I'm sure you'll be doing, you told me that you have released some of your films in theaters globally also. So does this theatrical plus streaming model really help the cause of making content a global phenomena?
Yeah, so, while our core business is streaming, we really believe in the theatrical window. And depending on the kind of movie that we're producing, we take a joint call with our creators in terms of, hey, this is a movie we feel can go to theaters first because this is a community experience. And this is the kind of movie that we would like to release on streaming first. It's a collaborative joint call that we make. We've started this about 8-9 months ago, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback we've received from the creative fraternity is that at a time when there is a lot of uncertainty with respect to the box office, a lot of scripts which are very high quality, makers whose scripts and movies have been languishing because of lack of initiative to get them produced. They're finding this model extremely exciting because we're going there and backing them and saying, if you're a passionate maker and have a great story, then we are willing to partner with you and make sure that this movie gets made, whether it is for theatrical or for streaming. So I think that part has landed really well. The second part is that for these movies to when they release on Prime Video, to be released in more than 200 countries and territories worldwide on the same day ensures fantastic global access and reach. And then typically what you'll see is movie releases on a Friday on our service, and on Sunday or on Monday somebody from the team, whether it's an actor or a writer or a director, will make this phone call and say, I haven't experienced this moment before in my life, this is just fantastic. And I think that joy that you receive that from the creators who've put in their blood, sweat and toil, that makes it really worthwhile. That's actually the global moment for them on streaming, even more than theatrical. But in India, in particular, we've already released a few, and starting next year, between 3 to 4 movies we intend to take to theaters first. A bunch of them are already under production. It's actually an initiative that internally at Prime Video we're very excited about. We speak about it sort of every day. And the response from the creative fraternity has been really, really heartwarming on this one.
So two things I would like to hear from you is you released Superboys of Malegaon, right? Have I got the name right? Both in theaters in India and globally.
That's right.
So, I mean, is there anything that you would like to share with us when it comes to, what were the learnings, what was the experience?
Sure. In fact, Superboys of Malegaon went to a lot of theaters as well. It was in the gala night at Toronto. It was at the London Film Festival. It went to Saudi Arabia. So it did a whole streak of film festivals, and I was fortunate to be a part of a few where you saw that movie being received by audiences which were not just Indian audiences, but local audiences who are not of Indian origin, and really being loved, which essentially went, and I thought that because that movie talks so much about our movie making culture, it talks about Sholay, I felt maybe it's only Indians who relate to it, but emotions are universal, and when people are able to connect with the character and their emotional journey, it could be coming from any part of the world, and they really sort of latch on to it. So I've seen people crying after those releases, standing ovations. So if you make a movie which you're passionate about from your heart, which is high quality craft, and you put your heart and soul in it, I think audiences across the world will embrace it. And we also do a lot from Prime Video side, as Shilangi said, to make sure these movies are accessible, whether it is subtitling in more than 15 languages, dubbing in multiple languages, to make sure people across the world get access. And similarly within India, because India is such a under-screened market when it comes to theatre screens. Originally, movies which were produced in a particular state used to get limited to that particular state only. But over a period of time, what we today call the pan-India moment, streaming, and Amazon in particular, Prime Video, has played such a crucial role in making sure that those movies are available to audiences across the country in a language that they can, understand and access. And that's what has improved the, blast radius for all these movies coming, which we've seen in the last few years. So it's both the moment happening locally and globally for these movies.
So when you decide on a film, you won't be releasing all films on theater, right? It will be a mix of theater and streaming, and some of them would only be streaming, right?
That's right.
So what goes into that, when you take that decision?
Yeah, it's a nuanced decision. I think there are certain scripts that come to us which we feel, along with the creator, that these are community viewing experiences. They're best enjoyed in sitting in a hall with multiple people around. I think comedy is a great genre. You tend to find a particular scene or a movie even funnier when people are watching it and laughing alongside you, right? And so those are the calls that we take, saying, the music, the scale, the spectacle and nature of the script is such that it's probably better enjoyed in theaters first. And then there are other movies which are, really engaging, compelling. They're sort of lean-in movies, which we feel are better suited for streaming. And then, we partner with our creators to take those calls fairly early up in the writing process, in the production process. And that's how we, sort of separate it. I'd be lying if I'd say there is an exact science and art to it. It is something that you arrive at more collaboratively, using your best judgment, using your director's judgment, the producer's judgment, and agree, saying, this is how we'd like to bring it to the world. There are a lot of creators who say, I don't want to come into the pressure of box office and casting. I just want my story to be told. And streaming is a simpler way of just making it accessible to 200 countries without those challenges. So some of them enjoy that, and the others are still keen to see their movies on the big screen first. And we try and honor that emotion for both types of creators.
So the next question, in fact, I would like to hear from both of you. So Shilangi, we can start with you probably. So Indian content across platforms, across streaming platforms, even films, are resonating with the global audience. We find more Oscar nominations happening, and more of our content making it to the top 10 week after week across platforms. So, but when it comes to, if we were to compare ourselves with say Korea or Turkey, we're still far behind. So it'll be interesting to hear from you as to what needs to change as a country, as an industry, to ensure that more of our content kind of begins to resonate globally.
Yeah, that's such an important topic, and thank you for asking that question. Because as an industry, we do need to sort of come together and make that. I think there have been no better forum than FICCI in many ways, come to think of it, which is, the policy, industry, and just such a great mix. And as we sort of work through with the creator economy on this one, and the three groups sort of come together, some of the green shoots that we've seen in India in the last 1 year specifically, like Waves was also a great opportunity where where the government came in, leaning in, saying that let's put this together, let's tell. We're known for the best storytelling, but we've probably not done a great job of taking this as meaningfully as we'd like it to. To Nikhil's point about access and reach. I mean, historically, it was always about theatricals, but they're underscreened globally. So how do you make your content travel? So some of the things that have worked for us, and something that we want to sort of work together as an industry, is that localization of content. And doing that very, very intentionally, which is day and date, and not an afterthought. That we'll first make content in the original language, and then we'll see if we can sort of dub and sub it in other languages. From the get-go, we sort of invest and go all in to say that we'll do day and date localization and release in 200 plus territories, for Prime Video. That's probably one big reason why why our content has traveled so much, and why we've seen it get so much traction. The other thing that is working for us from an Asia perspective is that we also look at how Korean content is traveling in India, and how do we make sure that we localize it in Indian languages. So again, day and date localization of our Korean content in English and Hindi. So some of these aspects, and then the industry sort of coming together and doing it in a more intentional way is really going to make us break that little ceiling. And probably the last thing I'll say is that we have the privilege of having access to Prime members globally, and release our content. It is such an expansive base, and we've also been lucky that the diaspora community is really part of the global Prime member base as well. So the discovery of our content has been fantastic. But again, it's early days. We need to do a lot more. But it gives us the encouragement to keep doing what we're doing and just continue to do that at scale.
So what needs to change, Nikhil, as an industry to ensure that our content really travels across the world?
I think as Shilangi said, the green shoots are there. This is a little hard to plan for in terms of what is that one piece of content that will, or a story that will really break through. It's just the unpredictable nature of the business. But what do you need is that one breakout moment that travels globally in a way which is unprecedented. And then for consumers across the world, it opens their minds and hearts to saying, hey, I saw something from this country which is absolutely exceptional. I've never seen this before. Now let me try and see more of this. It gives encouragement to creators. It gives encouragement to people in the ecosystem. And I feel we had a sort of moment like that with RRR, but we haven't had a big enough and had that consistently. We are seeing green shoots on the service for sure. All our original content, almost Indian content, about 25% of the viewership comes from outside India. And I think the second piece is just the narrative building. We continue to believe that content from outside India is traveling well here, but the narrative around Indian content traveling outside, which already exists, as an industry, we haven't done a great job of bringing that narrative forward. And I think once that happens, not only locally and globally, that big change will also make a difference. But yes, nothing can beat that one big breakout moment that sort of, the rise makes all boats rise. We're all waiting for it.
So apart from Hindi content, a lot of the content which has kind of hit the global charts have come from Andhra, have come from Tamil Nadu and Kerala and all that. So again, I mean, India has got so many languages. We are so diverse. So again, does any recalibration is any recalibration required when it comes to presenting that content to the global audience?
I think when it comes to series, Hindi started off earlier, and some of the markets in the south have started later, so they're catching up. But Sudal is a show that came out of a Tamil original slate that has gone into 2 seasons. Pushkar and Gayatri, fantastic show that traveled the globe really well. Dhoota, which was a Telugu series starring Nag Chaitanya, that traveled very well. That's also into development for a 2nd season. We've just not produced enough. At least I can speak on behalf of Prime Video. But whatever we've produced, we are seeing that's traveling extensively. The ideas are fantastic. Even a lot of the Malayalam movies, the access that Prime Video brought to those movies through streaming to the rest of the country is also one of the reasons why that's become so popular in the country. So the ideas are there. We just need to surface them better.
Shilanki, you touched upon the rental model that you have. So how does that help in taking Indian content global? In fact, I remember, on the sidelines, you were talking about how some of your content has become a huge phenomena, through the rental model in countries like Japan. So would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, there I think it works both ways. I think we first, because it's more of a category creation in India, I think the first one is that India as a country, we've benefited from our global catalog that we've been able to unlock for Indian audiences via movie rentals. And the other is how do we make sure that we export our titles and make sure that they're also available for rentals. The whole rights and the windowing process for rentals is very different. Unlike the SWOT business where we sort of typically we acquire global rights, rentals is not always like that. So it's more of an import rather than than an export. But we are also looking at multiple ways on how do we sort of bring this content together thematically from a genre standpoint, and drive discovery of that content with our diaspora and our international customers. Again, very early days because we focused more in the first 2 to 3 years of being in this business to make sure that we set ourselves up where we have selection that's compelling. We can build habit over time, and we're seeing that. Well, like 60% of our rental catalog is rented every month, and we're also sort of, even the rental penetration in India is 95%. So it's very encouraging, but also it's extremely early days for us. Yeah.
Great. So Indian content is kind of increasingly doing well, but it's still early days and we do have a long way to go. So Nikhil, just a closing comment as to what really is your plan. What is the next big piece of content that is coming up from Amazon Prime Video India, and how do you look at scaling it up?
I'm going to answer this quickly. I realize our time's up. I think we have more than 100 originals in different stages of production, development, negotiation, etc. So the amount of storytelling that we're doing is the highest in our history. We have returning seasons of Panchayat, of Patal Lok, of Family Man, Call Me Bay, multiple of our IPs launching in the next 12 to 18 months. Mirzapur, the next installment is going to be a movie instead of a series. I'm really excited about that. As I mentioned, our theatrical initiative. And again, our slate in the South is going to be the largest since our launch in Prime Video over the next 12 to 18 months.